Hello and welcome into the Cubs on Deck podcast. I am your host today. My name is Greg Huss, and we're here for episode number 102. I'm actually sitting here today recording just myself. We're going to get a kind of a weird schedule of episodes coming up. Actually, it shouldn't be a weird schedule. It should be a weird kind of layout and setup of episodes, I guess is a better way to describe it. A little bit of background. I'm pre-recording this episode here today. And I'm also pre-recording. I'm recording this on Monday, the 19th, right ahead of the when episodes typically get posted. And then I'm also recording today an additional episode to be posted later on down the road. I'm like I said last week, officially on baby watch, and not sure when I'm going to be able to record episodes with my co-host Brian Smith and Greg Zumak coming up. So what we've got lined up now is I put out a call for questions to you guys on social media this past week to get as many questions as I possibly could. And you guys showed out. You guys were absolutely terrific in terms of giving me content to talk about on the podcast. So I've got two different Q&A kind of listener questions type of episode set up. The first of which is more time sensitive content, which is what I'm covering here today, and you guys are listening to. And then in a few weeks, you'll hear some different content as far as time stuff that's not time sensitive, and I'll answer some of those questions on the podcast. So you'll get those two episodes. You'll also get an episode. I believe you'll get one from Greg Zumak going solo to give a little bit of draft talk. So I think he should be putting out a call for questions on social media here pretty soon. So kind of a weird setup the next few weeks. So I apologize for maybe stuff that's not exactly covering what's going on in the farm system right now, but we're still going to be talking Cubs prospects like we always do on the show. So what I've got planned today are about probably about 45 minutes or so worth of answers to your guys' questions. And like I said, you guys showed out. You guys sent in a ton of really good questions. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll display the questions down below so you know what I'm talking about. If you're listening on podcast forms, I'll be speaking the questions out loud. You'll be able to hear them. You don't need to see them. Nothing about what I'm doing you'll need to see on YouTube, but we do appreciate you guys tuning in on YouTube, giving us a like, subscribing, all that good stuff. Leave us a comment below. But yeah, so that's what I've got here today. I'm going to dig in right off the bat with some Will Sanders talk, because that is honestly, that's been my favorite thing to talk about over the past week or so is Will Sanders and how much he's showing out in this system. I put out a tweet and a Blue Sky post, and I think something in the Discord as well, talking about Will Sanders before he made his start this past week and how impressive he's looked both by the numbers but also by the eye test. And then we got a call from Dan at ThunderDan63, responded asking, just saying, hey, give some more Will Sanders talk, and I do not mind obliging to that one single bit. So what we saw from Will Sanders this past week was 6 innings pitched. He gave up only 1 hit, no earned runs, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. And that was coming into a start where he already performed really well over the course of the season. Over the course of the season now, including that start from this past week, his ERA down in Double-A Knoxville is all the way down to 2.29. He's got a sub-1 whip at 0.99. The strikeout rate is at a perfectly acceptable rate at 25.5%. The walk rate is one of the best in the entire system, down at 5.2% walk rate. So kind of the basic numbers across the board have been really strong for Will Sanders. That's in just shy of 40 innings pitched this year. So really strong numbers across the board as far as your traditional numbers. If you want to dig a little bit deeper in Will Sanders, that's perfectly fine too. He's got a swinging strike rate of almost 16%, which is really strong in the system. The looking strike rate is not nearly as high at 15%, but like the combined number at 31% is still really, really impressive for Will Sanders. The overall strike percentage is something that I really want to get into here in talking about Will Sanders. It's almost 70%. He's got a 69.8% strike rate so far this year. He's pumping the zone, and even when he's not pumping the zone, he's getting a lot of swings and misses on pitches outside of the zone. So that's kind of, again, that's what I want to hit on with Will Sanders. I posted the other day that every outing that he has this year, it makes me forget a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more from what we saw from him last year. And we talked pretty highly of Will Sanders last year and how he looked pretty impressive, but he just wasn't very consistent. He wasn't putting it all together. needed to find the zone a little bit more. Well, he's finding the zone now. He's looked really strong. And what really stands out to me when I'm watching a Will Sanders outing is that all of his pitches seem to have a little bit of late life and just a little bit of movement in every single direction. And it's been really impressive as far as that goes. He's got the big curveball, and that's a more of a big breaking pitch that he throws. But besides that, he's got a fastball that, especially when it's up in the zone, rides up in the zone. He's got a little bit of a cutter that goes glove side. He's got a cutter slider. I'm not sure exactly what he wants to call it, but moving glove side as a right-handed pitcher. He's got this changeup going arm side. He's also got what I think is his best pitch, his best offering is this new splinker that he's throwing. I think that he introduced us to that during the spring breakout performance. He went on in an interview with wasn't it Lance? I think it was Lance Brozdowski and the whole team that was calling that spring breakout game, and he mentioned the splinker, the Paul Skeens splinker that he throws, and really it's a pitch that just kind of dives a little bit arm side, a little bit away from away from a left-handed pitcher towards a left-handed batter towards a right-handed batter, but mostly down, right? He's got that downward movement on it. And so every pitch that he has kind of darts in every single direction, gets that movement. And really what that does is it gets some strikeouts, which is impressive. But more than anything, it gets some weak contact, whether that's a pop-up in the infield, a lazy fly ball, or a lot of ground balls he's been getting this year too. So a lot of really impressive pitches, really impressive performance. He does not miss the catcher's mitt by a whole lot. Every single pitch, he hits his target a lot. So I don't know, guys. I really dig Will Sanders so far this year. I've been really impressed. Like I said, I liked him last year. I really like what he has to offer this year. As of today, as of May 19th, he is the Cubs minor league pitcher of the year. Obviously, we still have a lot of seasons still to go before that award can be handed out, but he's been the most impressive guy in the organization. Outside of, obviously, Cade Horton was very good, but I think that we can expect Cade Horton to get a whole lot more starts in at the major league level. So Will Sanders is that guy. Will Sanders has been really impressive. I've liked what I've seen from him so far in the early going. The next question came in from Michael Ford on social media asking, at what point can we be concerned with the Owen Caissie strikeout rate? So we're going from something super fun in Will Sanders and his performance to Owen Caissie, which has been a little less impressive. Honestly, like still over the course of the season, I know he dealt with injuries a little bit for a few weeks there, but the numbers over the course of the season are still actually fairly impressive for Owen Caissie. But he's right, the strikeout rate still is up there, higher than what you'd like to see. So I'm pulling up his stats here now as we speak. And the strikeout rate for Owen Caissie is north of 30% still. Entering this week, he's at a 33.8% strikeout rate. And so that's a number we've seen him have right around 30+% over the course of his career. And I don't know. I think that I'm less concerned about Owen Caissie's strikeout rate as opposed to just making sure that everything else comes up to match what is appropriate for a strikeout rate that high. So I know in the question, Michael Ford pointed out, he goes that Owen Caissie is to a certain degree starting to look like a poor man's Joey Gallo. And I don't know, man. I'll start off by saying that you can do a whole lot worse than Joey Gallo's career 16 WAR that he posted over the course of his time as a hitter. I know Joey Gallo is a pitcher now, and I know Joey Gallo struck out 40% of the time in the majors, and I know that he was this major three true outcomes guys, homer, walks, and strikeouts, and lots of strikeouts, and who hit the ball very, very hard. I know what Joey Gallo was, but like, man, if Owen Caissie or any Cubs prospect posts 16 WAR over the course of their career, that's pretty impressive. So I know we don't want Owen Caissie to end up like Joey Gallo. I know we have higher aspirations than that outcome. But the way I view Owen Caissie and kind of being able to take that 33% strikeout rate, that high strikeout rate, is really to look at a guy more like Kyle Schwarber, right? Where I know I've compared Owen Caissie to Kyle Schwarber since the day that he was acquired from the San Diego Padres. But I think that I bring up Kyle Schwarber now because it's the reason, one of the reasons why Owen Caissie's strikeout rate is so high is because he works these really deep counts. Owen Caissie is a really good feel to hit. And I feel like a lot of times when you're associating feel to hit or that contact or a really nice contact approach, you're looking at a guy that posts a 270 batting average or above. And Owen Caissie is not really going to do that at the major league level. He's sure not doing that this season. But you watch Owen Caissie take at bats and the way that he uses the entire field and the way that he hits, it's like he kind of does have a pretty good feel to hit up there, even though he is striking out. And now I know that Owen Caissie swings and misses at a lot of changeups from right-handed pitchers. That's actually my biggest concern with Owen Caissie is the changeups from righties. He seems to swing and miss through those a whole lot. He swings and misses in the zone quite a bit. But another thing that contributes, like I said, is that Kyle Schwarber effect, and the Ian Happ effect to a certain degree as well, where he's a guy that works super deep counts, and because he's working deep counts, he's also going to strike out a lot by default. And so I think I guess my point is with all of this is there's more to Owen Caissie's strikeout rate than just, oh man, he strikes out 35% of the time. The important thing, like I said before, is that he continues to show more in-game power every single year as he continues to get older. He's still a super young guy. He's still, 22, 23 years old at this point, still super young. I want to see that power go through the roof. I really want those really strong exit velos to really translate to 30 plus home run power, like we saw from Kyle Schwarber. Because Kyle Schwarber strikes out 30% of the time and he can still be very, very successful. He's still got a 210 batting average, can still be successful. And Owen Caissie can be that as well, even though he's striking out 30+% of the time. So that's my take on Owen Caissie. I think there's still plenty more time for him to grow over the course of his career. And I think that whether it's used as a trade package or continue to develop to potentially replace Kyle Tucker in the future, I'm really optimistic about Owen Caissie still. Very optimistic about him. So we can actually transfer that conversation about Owen Caissie into, we had a question here. Let me make sure I got the person right who says this. Kelder asked, what is a bigger issue? Is it Owen Caissie's strikeout rate, Kevin Alcantara struggles against breaking balls, or Ballesteros' lack of home run power? So all three very legitimate concerns about all three of these guys: the Owen Caissie strikeout rate, Alcantara breaking balls, Ballesteros lack of home runs. Let's attack each of them individually. We talked about Owen Caissie's strikeout rate. He can still be a successful major league hitter even with the strikeout rate. Now, it's a kind of a thinner margin of error for him if he continues to sport that strikeout rate, but he can still be successful. I think you look at Moises Ballesteros in the same way, where even if he doesn't have a 30 home run power, he can still be successful in the major leagues, right? He can still be a DH or potentially a catcher, whatever he ultimately ends up being defensively. But if he's batting 275 and has 20 home runs, that can still be a super and walking at a major clip. So he's got a batting average of 350 plus. That's still a very successful hitter in the major leagues, a very successful hitter. So I still think he can, and with Moises Ballesteros especially. I mean, I think that I know that I've posted that we should not have expectations of Moises Ballesteros in Chicago right now, of him being a 25 to 30 home run guy. And I really wanted to set those expectations for fans, especially people not listening to the show that aren't aware of Moises Ballesteros in depth, right? The fans of strictly the major league team that were learning about Moises Ballesteros for the first time. I made sure to post about Ballesteros and say, hey, listen, like, this is not a guy that is going to post 30 home runs in the majors right now. It's going to be like 15 type home runs, and that's perfectly fine too. Now, he's still just 21 years old. He just turned 21 years old. So, I mean, this is his 21-year-old season. And so there's still plenty of time for Moises Ballesteros to continue to generate more and more power at the big league level. I have much less concern. I think if we're ranking these three like concerning topics, Moises Ballesteros' lack of home run power is probably my lowest concern of the three. Now, my biggest concern of the three is Kevin Alcantara and his struggle against breaking balls. Like that is a legit concern for me. I've watched so many of Alcantara's at bats, and I've watched so many times where he swung through, not even swung through, he swung and missed at breaking balls, sliders specifically, diving out of the zone. We have the bat, and really the thing that really supports is a weird way to describe it, but supports my concern for Alcantara's struggles against breaking balls is that I kind of identified this from like putting on my scouting hat and watching him in Myrtle Beach and South Bend and up to AA Tennessee last year. And I was concerned about that. And then he came up to AAA Iowa, and we had the StatCast numbers to back up that claim, right? That is, he does have struggles against breaking balls. We can break it down on a pitch by pitch basis. I posted it over on social media. You can go check that out. That was, I can always update that. I probably should update that here pretty soon, but the stats prove that Alcantara is struggling with sliders, with curveballs. That's happening, right? And so I'm watching him in AAA, and the with AAA, there's always guys they're not working on stuff in the same way that you're working on stuff in spring training. You're looking to fight your way to the big leagues, but at the same time, you're not necessarily attacking hitters' weaknesses in the exact same way that you would at the major league level. Alcantara getting everyday playing time in Chicago at the major league level, opposing pitchers and opposing pitching coaches will see that weakness in his game and just throw him slider after slider after slider after slider, all out of the zone, all watching him chase. And so limiting that chase is going to be huge, right? Like, he doesn't have to be an incredible hitter against breaking balls, and that's not going to happen overnight, where he goes from a sub 200 WOBA to a 300 plus WOBA against breaking balls. That's not going to happen. But what can happen is he can start to lay off those breaking balls right now and get better in that way. And then pitchers, because of that, pitchers start throwing more fastballs. They start throwing more changeups. They start throwing more sinkers and cutters and things that he can handle a little bit better. And he can continue to improve over time against breaking balls. And so, yeah, man, I think that, like, that's something he'll need to continue to get better at, because I think that that's by far my biggest concern. And I know he's a really good defender in center field. I know he's going to be a great defender in right field. I know that he has this crazy power. I've talked about it so much on this podcast, and he's a freak athlete. He's a very, very, very good player. But that is a very important, in the same way that guys that can't hit fastballs in the major leagues, that really comes back to haunt them. This is the same concern with Alcantara and the breaking balls. So, yeah, I'd rank these issues with these three players as from least concern to most concern, as being Ballesteros, his home run power. I'm not too concerned about that. Owen Caissie, strikeout rate. It's there, but I think there's a way around it. And then Kevin Alcantara is my biggest concern here. And I think that, like, we got lots of questions about trade targets for guys in the system, and we'll address that on a future episode. But other teams can see that too, right? I think that, like, we have to look at Owen Caissie and Kevin Alcantara and say, okay, they're top 100 prospects, but they come with flaws, and other teams have identified those flaws. And so a team that sees Alcantara struggle against breaking balls and says, you know what, we can fix that. We can help Kevin Alcantara with that. That's a team you want to target in a trade, as opposed to a team that says, you know, I value Kevin Alcantara a whole lot less because I don't think that's something we can fix. And so that's going to be important for the Cubs, is identifying those trade partners moving forward towards the trade deadline. So, all right. We had I saw on Twitter that friend of the show, Todd Johnson, he posted, this is probably last week or so, so these numbers might be updated since then, but he posted the Cubs team leaders in WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, basically the best offensive performer at each level of the Cubs farm system, from down in Mesa at the Arizona Complex League, which is going on right now, all the way up through the highest level of the minors in AAA in Iowa. And so he posted players for each of those levels, and Bill Rofer responded and asked for me to cover each of these players on Todd's list. Just give a few brief comments about each of these guys. I thought that'd be kind of appropriate, especially given where they're at right now and what they're doing and how impressive they look. So we'll start off at the lowest level and work our way up. The first guy is Eli Lovich, which we haven't talked hardly at all about Eli Lovich since he was drafted last year in 2024. That's mostly because we don't cover a whole lot of guys down in the complex leagues on this podcast. We cover a lot of guys that we can watch on a nightly basis in the full season affiliates. Obviously, we're keeping up with what's going down in the complex league. We're keeping up with what's happening down in the Dominican Summer League, but most of our effort goes into those full season affiliates. So we'll talk about Eli Lovich here because he has been really impressive. He's got, as of the time of this post, he had a WRC plus of 152 down in Mesa in the Arizona Complex League. I think we ultimately see Eli Lovich up in Myrtle Beach before the season's up. Now, I kind of entered the season thinking we would see Lovich in Myrtle in like August or September, like the very end of the season. But no, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in June or July. I think that like that's on the table. Obviously, we're not seeing how he looks on a day-to-day basis. We're not seeing what's going on with Eli Lovich behind the scenes. We're not seeing are the Cubs more focused on him continuing to put on muscle? Because if they are, then we're not going to see him maybe at all in Myrtle Beach. If they just want Eli Lovich to get bigger, to get stronger, to continue to improve his body as a high school draft pick from a year ago, then there's no reason for him to be up in Myrtle Beach, despite his really strong performance down in the Complex League. If that's the focus, then that should be the focus, and we shouldn't worry about when he gets up to Myrtle Beach. Now, if they feel confident in what he's been doing as far as his workouts and improving his body over the course of the last season or so, I guess calendar year. We're approaching draft season right now, right? If they feel good about that, then yeah, they will call him up to Myrtle Beach, and he'll be penciled in center field and right field every day for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. And I think I've described him as I think I need to see way more of him in action before I start describing him and getting into details about his swing and stuff like that. But I think if we're using as a boilerplate, not as a comp, not as an expectation, but as a if you want a type of player that Eli Lovich is like, I think you're starting at like with the mindset of like Christian Yelich or like a combination of Christian Yelich and Owen Caissie, and that's kind of that's your starter point. Again, don't compare Eli Lovich to Owen Caissie, who was a top draft pick and now a top 100 prospect, or Christian Yelich, who was MVP and one of the best players for over like 7 years in the major leagues. Don't compare Eli Lovich, a day 3 pick, even an over slot pick. Right? He's an 11th round pick over slot. Even an overslot guy, don't compare him to Owen Caissie and Christian Yelich. But if you're looking for the style of player that he is, I think that's where my mind is starting off. And we'll see once he reaches Myrtle Beach how those kind of opinions shift a little bit over time. So let's go up to Myrtle Beach and talk about Cameron Sisneros. We got lots of talk about Cameron Sisneros because he has been just tremendous. Like he has been so good during his time. He got really hot. Actually, when he got really hot was right after Luke Maley came on this podcast, and we talked a little bit about Cameron Cisneros then. And then as soon as Luke hopped off the podcast, apparently that was Cameron Cisneros' cue to absolutely take off. So over the course of the season, Cameron Cisneros, his numbers at the time of Todd's post, he had a WRC plus of 161. But over the course of the season, he's got a batting average of 330, which is, I believe, third best in the system. He's got, fourth best in the system. He's got an on-base percentage of 439. He's slugging 436, which is not easy to do in Myrtle Beach. That's an OPS of 875. But more importantly, he's striking out less than 10% of his plate appearances, which is the best in the organization. He is walking at an above average clip at 13.2%. He's been really, really good across the board. Now, with Cameron Cisneros, it's a couple things, right? First of all, you look at it and you say, wow, like he's putting up really good offensive numbers in Myrtle Beach where it's really hard to hit. That's really impressive, right? That it's hard to hit in that league in general. It's really hard to hit in that ballpark, and it's really hard to hit in that ballpark early on in the season. And so his OPS at 875 is actually 30% better than league average. He's got a 130 OPS plus so far this season to really show you like how much better he is. Like, for example, to give you a little bit of context, like Chase Strumpf is in AAA Iowa, which is a hitter's ballpark. He has an OPS of 956 compared to Cameron Cisneros' 875 and has a nearly identical OPS plus, so 129 OPS plus. So the difference between league average rates of OPS between Myrtle Beach and Iowa in their leagues is almost 100 points, which is crazy. I guess closer to 80 points, but still a crazy difference. And so it's really impressive what Cameron Cisneros is doing. On the other side of the coin, he's doing this at almost 24 years old. He's almost 3.5 years older than the average hitter in the Carolina League. So he's much older. Obviously was a 4-year player during his time in college. he was not a junior draft pick. He's an older guy. The expectation is that he performs better during his time in the lower minors than a lot of his peers. And so you kind of balance those things out. I've got my bash metric that I always reference that accounts for league rates, it accounts for ballpark, and it also accounts for age compared to competition. And overall, he's got a 114 bash, which is top 10 ish in the organization. It's right behind guys like Ivan Brethowr and Owen Caissie, actually, and Chase Strumpf. And so, really good bash. I'd say right now, the fact that he's hitting as well as he is actually outweighs the fact that he is older than the average competition during his time in Myrtle Beach. And so, my big thing with Cameron Sisneros, get him up the ladder, get him up to South Bend. He deserves to be up in South Bend right now. The weather's getting warmer. Let's do it. Let's get him up to South Bend. And I don't see scenario. I can see a scenario where he ends the season in Double A Knoxville if he continues to hit as he climbs the ladder. So that's my take on Cameron Cisneros. Jefferson Rojas is the next guy. Jefferson Rojas, again, at the time of Todd's post, had a WRC plus of 158. Obviously got a late start to the party coming back from his injury to start off spring training. Really good numbers from Rojas this season. 870 OPS, sub 20% strikeout rate, a walk rate at 10%. He's got the fourth best bash in the organization right now at 132, behind some guys you probably have heard of. That's Moises Ballesteros, Matt Shaw, and Jonathan Long, all three guys up in AAA. Jefferson Rojas has been really good. And I think that this is really what we expected. Maybe not expected. This is what we had hoped for during his return back to South Bend. Obviously, he spent last year in South Bend as well. The power is returning to a certain degree. He's got, so far this season, 4 home runs, which is super fun. A lot of fun things about Jefferson Rojas. I think that he might not be long for South Bend. I think that we could see him come up to, we talked about it a little bit on last episode. I think we could see him bumped up to Double A Knoxville in June. I think is when we see him up there. So really impressed with Jefferson Rojas. I think that like he is cementing himself as a top 100 prospect in all of baseball, which is super fun. The next guy up the ladder is someone who is has proven that he's too good for Double A, and we talked about him very briefly last week's show, and that's BJ Murray. BJ Murray so far this season is posting a 107 bash. He's got an OPS of 789. Again, a sub 20% strikeout rate, which is probably the most notable thing for BJ Murray, right? He's too advanced for Double A. He doesn't deserve to be there. He should be up in Triple A. But what I got concerned about last year was the strikeout rate really started to pop up there a little bit more than we expected and what we've grown accustomed to with BJ Murray. So for him to have a sub 20% strikeout rate, even in Double A, is really impressive, and it's given me some confidence. Walk rate back up to about 13%, which is something that we've grown incredibly accustomed to seeing out of BJ Murray. So yeah, he's a guy that should be in AAA. Johnny Long has passed him on the depth chart for guys that play first base but can probably play some third base as well. But yeah, as soon as there's an opportunity, which may come soon, right? We see Matt Shaw up in the big leagues, back up there now, so maybe that means there's an extra spot for a corner infielder up in AAA, and BJ Murray might be that guy. Let's go to the last guy, which is Johnny Long. Johnny Long has been, I mean, if we weren't talking so much about the performance of Moises Ballesteros and Matt Shaw in AAA, we'd be talking a whole lot more about Jonathan Long. Batting 367 this year, got an OBP of 429, a slug of 533. He's getting awfully close to that 1,000 number for OPS. His bash is third best in the organization. Again, right in line with Ballesteros and Matt Shaw at 142. He has been really strong. The thing with Jonathan Long, I know we had some conversations about Johnny Long on the 1060 West Discord channel, on the Prospects channel over there. He's got a really weird scenario, right, where he's hitting the crap out of the ball, and the hard hit rates are some of the best in all of AAA baseball. He's hitting the ball hard, and he's looked really impressive by the eye test. The strikeout and walk rates are a little bit, both of them just a little bit below league average, and the batting average on balls in play, the BABIP, is just astronomically high. He's got a 486 BABIP, which is like, even when you're hitting the ball hard, which if you're hitting the ball hard, your batting average on balls in play is going to be elevated a little bit because it's harder to field balls that are hit at high rates, right? But a 486 BABIP is just like an unbelievably high rate. Like, that's not sustainable even for guys that absolutely kill the ball. So that is going to come down, and with it, his overall numbers are going to come down. So you've got two things kind of playing against each other, right? Where hard hit numbers and barrel rates and things like that are going into his advantage. Where like those are numbers, those prove that numbers will sustain themselves. Like the overall slash line will sustain itself. The BABIP and the walk rate and the strikeout rate being higher slash lower than where they should, where you would like to see them, means those overall numbers are going to dip. And so, of course, he's not going to maintain a 962 OPS over the course of the season. But if he can maintain like an 850 plus OPS, that's a really impressive player. Still tough profile with Johnny Long. We talked about that at length about the right-handed hitting, probably first base only. The big thing I'm watching with Johnny Long moving forward now is right now he's dealing with a leg issue, so he's been out of the lineup. But as soon as he returns, Matt Shaw is no longer manning third base on a daily basis for the Iowa Cubs. And so that means, in my opinion, Jonathan Long should be there every single day, getting as many reps as he possibly can, not only for this Cubs team, but in case he's included in trade packages, proving that he can play third base in addition to first base is maybe the most valuable thing to his development long term, whether it's third base or left field or right field, like corner outfield too. Being able to play a position other than first base and DH is the most important thing for a guy that we know can hit the cover off the ball. So that's something I'm watching pretty extensively out of Jonathan Long. All right, guys. Next up is Jaxon Wiggins, because we love talking about Jaxon Wiggins. We talked about him a lot on last week's episode, so I won't go into too much detail here, but we did get a question here about Jaxon Wiggins. And that question came in. Let me look back to see who sent that in. I'm sorry. The question about Jaxon Wiggins came in from Caldy on social media. He basically asked, is there any chance that Jaxon Wiggins pitches in Chicago this year, or is it too early? I think it's probably too early. I think my short response is too early. He just got called up to Double A Knoxville. He killed it in South Bend. I think that our expectation are for a successful top 100 pushing season for Jaxon Wiggins. He ends the year in AAA Iowa. I know that there's a little bit of like, okay, well, if they start limiting his innings towards the end of the season, he's just used as a reliever and he's absolutely killing it, and the Cubs need help in Chicago, then is Jaxon Wiggins that guy? But I think that there's so many guys that he has to jump on in the pecking order in order to get that. Like he's not even Rule 5 eligible after this season, so he doesn't need to be added to the 40-man roster. That's working against him. The Cubs are going to go out. They will definitely go out at the trade deadline and get some bullpen help. And so basically Jaxon Wiggins would have to bunny hop over all the guys that are currently in the bullpen. Not all the guys, but a couple of guys that are currently in the bullpen in Chicago, the guys that will be in the bullpen that are going to be acquired at the deadline, and the guys that are currently in AAA. And there's a lot of really good relievers right now in AAA. I detailed the performances by Luke Little and Ethan Roberts, and Keegan Thompson's actually been absolutely terrific. So there's been some really good performers there as well. So he has to piggyback a lot of guys in order to get up there. It's kind of like, when you're talking about a playoff chase in the major leagues, and you're talking about a team that, oh yeah, they're only like 5 games out of first place in September or whatever, but they're in 4th place in the wild card, and you have to hop so many, or 4th place in the division, you have to hop so many teams. It's like that. Where like obviously Jaxon Wiggins is really good, and like on the surface, yeah, like I'd love to see him in Chicago in one inning spurts at the end of this year, but he's just got to hop so many teams. And so while the difference between him like being helpful at the major league level seems like it's within reach, it's not when you account for everybody that stands in between him and that performance in Chicago. So yeah, I think probably not. I think if he makes it up to Iowa, I would be thrilled with Iowa. If he ends the season in Double A Knoxville, I would still be happy. I think that's still a strong performance. So we should set our expectations on Iowa, is my thinking. All right, we got a question from, this one is from, sorry guys, I really should have wrote who they were from, so I had a better idea here. So we got a question about Ivan Brethowr, which is one of the favorite. I think everybody loves Ivan Brethowr. I'll have to come back to who sent this one in, guys. I'm so sorry. But it is about asking, is Ivan Brethowr a future top 10 prospect in the organization? This actually, this question came in from someone on Twitter that the handle is Joe Morgan ESPN, which I highly doubt this is either Joe Morgan or anybody affiliated with ESPN, but I love the account name. That's still fun. So Ivan Brethowr, is he a top 10 prospect in the organization? No. I Ivan Brethowr has been good. He's had a good season overall this season for Brethowr. He's been again a top 10ish performer in the organization this year. He's got an OPS pushing 800. He's walking an incredible amount. He's walking almost 16% of his plate appearances. That's leading to a 419 OBP. He's been really strong and actually not showing off the power that we expect from a guy that big. He's got a slug of 376. Like that's not a really good slugging percentage considering his size and what he could ultimately morph into. Now, when we're talking about the Cubs organization and the rankings of prospects within it, it's always important to point out that the Cubs are graduating a whole lot of guys. Cade Horton's going to go away in terms of the prospect rankings. Moises Ballesteros is up. He's going to lose his prospect status. Matt Shaw is. Kevin Alcantara is at some point here. Owen Caissie is. James Triantos in his AAA. Like all these guys are so close to losing their prospect status. And so like a new grouping of guys has to take that role, whether or not it's as strong as it used to be. They're still going to be technically top 10 prospects in this organization. And so, yeah, I mean, I think with a strong season potentially ending with a really strong performance in AA Knoxville, I think that he could be pushing like top 20 status in this organization. But I think that we just need to see more from Ivan Brethowr in South Bend and as he kind of climbs the ladder. I'm not saying it's impossible for him, but I just want to see continued strong performance. He's got a BASH of 115 so far this year, which again is a top 10 in the organization. And so he's going to have to maintain that. He's going to have to be a top 10 hitter. He's going to have to put up top 10 hitting stats in the organization consistently in order to be a top 10 prospect in the organization. So that's worth keeping an eye on for sure. All right. Next up, we have a few more questions, then we're going to wrap up this episode. We have 3 more that we're going to address. The next one, I believe, was also from the same account, asking about James Triantos. On a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you about James Triantos? Out of 1 to 10 is this is a good one. I think that so James Triantos missed a little bit of time. I think it ultimately ended up being 2 weeks maybe with a leg injury. And I think that prior to the injury, my guess is that he was feeling it a little bit before he started missing time because he started off really, really slow this season. And I think he's looked by the eye test and by the numbers, he's looked a whole lot better since he returned from that injury. He looks more explosive, more athletic. He's been playing some center field. We talked about that. I'm not too awful concerned about James Triantos based on the performance that we've seen from him so far this season. Overall, I've made very clear like my opinions about James Triantos and the role he might play on a major league team. I think that him being a utility player, I think him playing some center field is the best for him, and I think that like that's where he's gonna thrive on a playoff caliber team is as a utility guy playing some second, playing some short, playing some second, playing some center field, playing some third base, playing some corner outfield. I think that's where he gets his value. So I'm just like I'm always concerned about the lack of power and the lack of walks. Like that combination of things is always going to concern me. But I love the contact ability. I love the speed. I love the defensive versatility. If that really does come to fruition, from 1 to 10, I think like my concern based on the performance this year is at like a 3 or 4. Maybe a 3. Like let's say 3 on a scale from 1 to 10 is my concern based on this season and what we've seen so far. He's still only at 118 plate appearances so far this season. He's got a 234 batting average, 577 OPS. Strikeout rate is down like it always is, 16%. But yeah, man, I'm not too often concerned about what we've seen from him so far this year. All right, this is a very general question we got from somebody who I believe is planning on attending a South Bend Cubs game in the near distant future. This is from, oh man, guys, I blew this. Who asked this one? Bridger asked this one, asking what the biggest storylines in South Bend are right now. And to me, it's clearly, now that Jaxon Wiggins is gone, it is the duo up the middle. It's Christian Hernandez and Jefferson Rojas. Those are the guys you need to be watching on a daily basis in South Bend. On a South Bend roster, South Bend lineups that's not very deep. The rotation is suspect at times now. The team has just not been very strong this season. One of the worst records in minor league baseball actually this season. So if you're going to South Bend, if you're going to watch the South Bend Cubs game, pay extra close attention to Christian Hernandez and to Jefferson Rojas, because those are guys. They're going to bring excitement on a daily basis. Not only are they good players, but they're fun players to watch. So that's what you should be watching out for. And then there's going to be some exciting players coming out from Myrtle Beach later on in the season as well. So those are kind of the storylines in South Bend are those two players. The final question we have today is about Owen Ayers, and the question comes from Derek Ring, who asked, "Curious about what you think about Owen Ayers. The start for Owen Ayers seems like he could develop into something." I love Owen Ayers, dude. I love him. I think that he is super fun. I think we might have talked a little bit about Owen Ayers last episode. But really, a strong start to the season, right? For a guy that was I believe a 19th round pick last year, maybe 20th round pick last year in 2024. He is the expectation. The biggest expectation I had for him coming into the year is that he was going to be a doubles machine. He has 7 doubles this year. He's got an OBP pushing 400. He's at 385 for the OBP. The OPS is almost at 800. The numbers across the board for Owen Ayers are really strong. Again, in Myrtle Beach, in a place where it's very difficult to hit. And so I'm right now, when you see me looking off screen, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm looking at my player stat. I have spreadsheets for all the players in the system. And what I have with that, I have everything color coded, right? A lot of the green means good, red means bad for every single statistical category across the board. So I know what players are doing well in certain categories. Owen Ayers is green, at least slightly green, in every single category that I have coded here. The bash is above average. The batting average is above average. OBP, slugging, OPS, K percentage, walk percentage, OPS plus, ISO. Every single stat category is green across the board. And that's really impressive. Like, again, for a guy that is 1, a catcher, 2, in Myrtle Beach, and 3, a late day 3 draft pick. And so for me, it's the athleticism. I think that he can be really strong behind the plate. I think that's really impressive. He like Cameron Cisneros, is older than league average. He about almost the exact same age as Cameron Cisneros, actually. Let me look this up, because he's also 23.9. His birthday is on June 7th, and Cameron Cisneros' birthday is on June 1st. So yeah, they're both rapidly approaching their 24th birthday. So older than league average, but that's okay, man. I again, a catcher, I'm not too concerned about the age of a catcher. And so yeah, I don't think we're talking top 10, top 20 prospect with Owen Ayers, but by the end of the season, if he comes up to South Bend and he performs well, he's going to get some top 30 attention from me, because the catching depth in this organization is not great. The Cubs have really prioritized catchers that work well with their pitchers across the board. We've talked about that at so much length between Casey Opitz and Pablo Aliendo and Miguel Pabon and Ethan Hearn and all these guys that are well liked among pitching staffs is really, really important. But with that is you get guys that aren't very good offensively. And we talk about, I mean, that catching trio of Casey Opitz, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about Casey Opitz on a future episode, but Casey Opitz, Ethan Hearn, and Pablo Aliendo have been just really bad offensively this season in Double A Knoxville. And the reason why I noticed that for the first time was because with Moises Ballesteros coming up to the majors, and with Reese McGuire in AAA recently opting out of his being released, probably due to an opt-out in his contract, the Iowa Cubs are down to just Carlos Perez in behind the plate with Caleb Knight, who in a lot of ways Caleb Knight acts as a kind of player coach. And so they're going to need somebody to come up from Double A Knoxville to take to be a third catcher or a backup catcher, especially if Carlos Perez, also, who's absolutely tearing the cover off the ball, also has an opt out in his contract. So they're going to need to get some help. And when I was looking at the double A Knoxville catchers, just all of them are just like really bad offensively this year, but they manage a pitching staff, and we appreciate that. So back to my earlier point, Owen Ayers, if you perform offensively, you're going to get a little bit of extra love in this organization as far as my top prospect rankings go, just because you're a catcher that performs well offensively, unlike every other catcher in the organization for the most part. So, that's a good call with Owen Ayers. I think that he definitely deserves some time on this podcast. So, all right, guys, that's all I've got here today. We went 45 minutes or so, exactly what I was shooting for this episode. I still got to record another episode here later tonight or maybe tomorrow. If it doesn't come tonight, if it comes tomorrow, then I'm fingers crossed that I actually do have the ability to record the podcast. Actually, maybe fingers crossed that I don't have the ability. It's probably better if I'm not recording the podcast. It's probably a better sign for me and my family. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. And really thank you guys for being flexible and understanding my kind of weird schedule coming up. I don't know what it's going to look like in terms of my timeline on an episode after the baby arrives. I don't know what we're looking like there. I know that Greg Zumak is super gracious enough to help out, and I really appreciate him and doing a draft episode. So we have you covered for a few weeks here. We should have you covered for a few weeks, and then it'll be back to the drawing board to see how we kind of go about doing this afterwards. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for checking it out on all the podcast platforms, on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, and all that good stuff. Really appreciate you guys tuning in on the YouTube channel as well. We've grown that YouTube, added quite a few subscribers over the past couple of weeks. You guys really liked on YouTube the Moises Ballesteros content as soon as he got called up, and then as well as finding out a little bit more about Jaxon Wiggins and his promotion up to Double A Knoxville. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be back in your ears very shortly. Take care.